The fluorescent lights buzzed, a low, constant hum near the ceiling panels. My hands rested flat on the polished oak table. They did not shake. I wore a borrowed navy blazer. It pinched slightly at my shoulders. I am 29 years old. I work as a paralegal at Morrison and Greer in Raleigh, North Carolina. I draft motions. I organize exhibits. I review case files until the letters blur. I do not sit in the plaintiff chair. Not until today. The sharp scent of gardenia perfume drifted across the table. Her perfume. Mitchell laid a thick paper folder down on the wood. The sound echoed in the quiet room. My client was unaware that these accounts, the opposing lawyer started. He cleared his throat. His voice cracked. Mitchell did not blink. He kept his eyes fixed on the man across the table. Your client opened 4 credit accounts using her daughter's social security number between 2019 and 2024. She also accessed her daughter's employer portal without authorization. She changed the beneficiary on a $250,000 life insurance policy. The documentation is in Exhibits C through F. Across the table, a heavy silver pen slipped from my mother's fingers. It hit the floor. A sharp, loud clatter against the tile. She leaned forward. Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow jerks. "Kayla," she whispered. Her voice carried across the wood, tight and desperate. "Kayla, look at me. I am your mother." I did not look at her. 3 weeks ago, that voice would have made me turn. It would have made me cave. It would have made me apologize for things I had not even done. Today, it was just a sound in a room. I felt tired. A bone-deep exhaustion settled in my jaw. Behind her, sitting in the gallery row, my father looked down at his phone. He thought he was just a witness. He thought he had walked away clean. Mitchell placed another stack of paper on the table. We also have documentation of utility accounts, opened using Miss Brennan's former address, opened by her father, Richard Brennan, resulting in $4,200 in collections currently affecting her credit. My father's head snapped up. I heard his heavy work boots scrape hard against the floor tiles. He stopped breathing. He did not know I knew. 3 weeks earlier, I was lying in a hospital bed wondering if I could afford to die. The steady beep of a heart monitor replaced the silence. The smell of bleach and old linen filled my nose. My throat burned. I had just woken up from emergency surgery. 2 days prior, I ate a salad at a local restaurant. Tree nut contamination. I went into anaphylactic shock. I managed to pull my EpiPen from my purse. I jabbed it into my thigh through my jeans. Something entered my bloodstream, but the reaction barely slowed. My throat kept closing. The medication was too degraded to stop what was happening to me. The paramedics told me later that the pen was 8 months past its expiration date. 8 months. My mother had managed my medical accounts and pharmacy refills for years, ever since I was a teenager. She handled the renewals. I never thought to check the dates myself. My mother and father stood at the foot of my hospital bed. They had been divorced for 15 years. They rarely stood in the same room without shouting. Today, they stood shoulder to shoulder. The nurse checked my IV line and stepped out. The heavy door clicked shut. "They told us the bill is $187,000, my mother said. She smoothed the front of her yellow cardigan. She did not look at the bandages on my arms. "Your father and I discussed it. You are 29 years old, Kayla." My throat felt like dry glass. "Mom," I can barely speak. My father was already standing by the door. He jingled his car keys in his pocket. "Your mother is right. Time to handle your own business. We took the Honda. It is in my name anyway." My mother picked up her purse. She slipped her coat over her shoulders. The leather strap dug into her coat. "When you are ready to apologize for how you have been acting, you know my number." The door opened. The door closed. Her footsteps faded down the linoleum hallway. I looked down at my hand. The IV needle taped back against my skin pulled tight. My phone sat on the rolling tray table. I did not reach for it. I did not call them back. Apologize for what? I did not know yet. I would not know for 2 more days. 2 days passed. Day 3 in the recovery ward. The IV drip kept its slow, steady rhythm. A plastic tray of red gelatin sat untouched on the rolling table. The smell of it made my stomach turn. Gray winter light filtered through the window. Raleigh always looked tired in January. My hands still swelled around the knuckles. I picked up my phone. I requested medical leave from my law firm through the portal. Mitchell, my boss, approved it immediately. He did not ask questions. I scrolled through my notifications. I opened my social media apps out of habit. A direct message sat in my inbox. It was from Ethan, my father's 22-year-old son with his second wife. We rarely spoke. Hey, I know this is weird, but my dad has been talking about your insurance stuff a lot. I do not know what it means, but just be careful, okay? I stared at the screen. My head pounded. I marked the message as unread. I told myself I would deal with it later. A sharp knock sounded at the door. A woman walked in. She did not wear scrubs. She wore a tailored gray business suit. A corporate visitor badge clipped to her lapel caught the weak sunlight. "Kayla Brennan?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I am Sandra Okafor. I am a compliance investigator with Aegis Life Insurance. I handle beneficiary verification for group policies through your employer, Morrison and Greer. Do you have a few minutes?" I pushed myself up against the pillows. The monitors beeped faster. "Yes. Is this about my medical claim?" Sandra pulled a vinyl chair close to the bed. She sat down. She opened a thick manila folder upon her lap. Partially. "Your medical claim triggered a standard review. There is an active beneficiary change on file. Miss Brennan, did you authorize the beneficiary change on your employer group life insurance policy last October?" I shook my head. "What beneficiary change?" Sandra paused. She looked at me for a long moment. She closed the folder slowly. "On October 14th, someone logged into your employer human resources portal. They changed the primary beneficiary on your $250,000 group life insurance policy. They changed it from the estate of Kayla Brennan to Diane Brennan. The login internet protocol address traces to a residential address in Cary, North Carolina." My breath stopped. I knew that address. It was my mother's townhouse. She knew my portal password. She set it up for me when I first got the job right out of college. She told me she wanted to make sure my benefits were set up correctly. I never changed the password. I never thought I needed to. Families do not hide things from each other. She repeated that rule to me my entire life. I sat in a hospital bed. I had almost died because my allergy medication was expired. My mother managed those pharmacy refills, and my mother had changed my life insurance policy to pay out to her. "If you had died," Sandra started. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Sandra leaned forward. Her voice dropped to a quiet, professional murmur. "Miss Brennan, I need to ask. Do you know if anyone else has had unauthorized access to your financial accounts?" I did not know the answer, but the question settled deep in my chest. It grew roots. Sandra left her business card on the tray table. Night fell. The hospital ward grew quiet. I was alone. I held my phone in both hands. My thumbs hovered over the glass screen. I opened my banking app. I opened a credit monitoring site. I had never checked my credit report before. I never had a reason to look. The screen loaded. The white background glared in the dark room. The numbers appeared. I stared at them. I rubbed my eyes. I looked again. 4 credit card accounts. I did not open any of them. The total balance was $27,400. The oldest account opened when I was 21. Right after I moved out of my mother's house, I had left a cardboard box of old tax returns and my original Social Security card in her attic. I asked her to keep it safe for me. Now I knew why she never asked me to take it back. The minimum payments had been coming from an old joint checking account. I called the bank to close that account 2 years ago. The representative told me it was done. What I did not know was that my mother had added herself as a secondary account holder years earlier. She kept it open on her end. She made the minimum payments herself for a while, just enough to keep the cards active. Then she stopped paying entirely last year. The accounts went to collections under my name. I scrolled further down. Utility bill collections. $4,200. The service address was my old apartment. The apartment my father helped me move out of. He kept a spare key for emergencies. He knew the address. He set up the power in my name and walked away. I pressed the phone to my forehead. The glass felt cold against my feverish skin. I did not cry. My chest felt hollow, empty, scraped, clean. I opened my contacts. I scrolled past my mother. I scrolled past my father. I tapped Mitchell's name. It was late. He answered on the second ring. "Mitchell," I said. My voice sounded flat, unfamiliar. "I need to ask you something. As a lawyer, not as my boss." "What happened?" Mitchell asked. The sleep vanished from his tone entirely. "I think my mother stole my identity, and I think my father helped." Silence stretched over the line. A long, heavy pause. Then Mitchell spoke. "Come to the office when you are discharged. Bring everything." I ended the call. I laid the phone on the sheets. I had to make a choice. Reporting them meant destroying everything. Reporting them meant calling the police on the people who raised me. But $27,000, an expired medical pen, a stolen life insurance policy. The debate in my head did not last as long as I thought it would. Maybe because the answer had been there for years. I just had not let myself hear it. Tomorrow, the hospital would discharge me. I had no car. I would call a driver. I would go to the office. For the first time in my life, I was choosing to step onto a battlefield. I rode in the back of a hired car on day 5. I wore a gray WakeMed hospital sweatshirt and black sweatpants pulled from their lost and found closet. The fabric smelled faintly of industrial laundry detergent. I did not have my apartment keys. I had changed the locks on my front door when I was 25. That was one of the few boundaries I had ever set in my life. It meant my mother could not let herself in to pack a bag for me. I went straight from the hospital to the law firm. Walking into Morrison and Greer in oversized hospital clothes felt entirely wrong. The heavy glass doors whispered shut behind me. The scent of polished leather and roasted coffee filled the lobby. The carpet absorbed the sound of my shuffling footsteps. I walked straight past the front desk. I went directly into Mitchell Greer's office. Mitchell looked up from his dual monitors. He did not comment on the clothes. He did not ask how I was feeling. He watched me walk to his desk. I set my phone down on the polished wood. I pulled up the credit report screenshots. I placed Sandra Okafor's business card right next to the screen. Mitchell picked up the phone. He scrolled. His eyes tracked back and forth across the glass. The silence in the room stretched out, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning vent above us. Finally, he set the phone down. "Here is what I see," Mitchell said. His voice remained perfectly level. 4 counts of identity theft, unauthorized access to an employer benefit computer system. That is a federal issue, but more practically, it is a state felony in North Carolina. Fraudulent beneficiary change on a life insurance policy. He tapped his pen against the legal pad. "And your father using your old address for utilities is a separate matter. Smaller dollar amount, but it establishes a pattern of family financial exploitation." I pulled the oversized sleeves of the sweatshirt over my knuckles. "What happens if I file?" "Police report first," Mitchell answered immediately. "Then credit bureau disputes. Then we look at civil action for damages. The insurance company is already investigating the beneficiary change. Sandra Okafor will send her report to their fraud division regardless of what you do." He paused. He leaned forward and rested his forearms on the desk. "North Carolina is a one-party consent state, by the way. If you talk to either of them on the phone, you can record it." I swallowed hard. "They are my parents, Mitchell." Mitchell looked at me. His expression did not soften, but his eyes shifted. "I grew up in foster care in Charlotte. I did not have parents who could steal from me, but I represented a kid last year. His mother took out $60,000 in student loans in his name. He was 19 years old. He felt guilty for 3 months before he called me. Mitchell picked up a pen and extended it across the desk toward me. Do not feel guilty for 3 months, Kayla. I reached out. My fingers brushed the smooth plastic of the pen. I took it. I signed the firm engagement letter. Mitchell was taking my case pro bono, a standard policy for firm employees. I filed the police report online, through the city portal that very evening. The next 5 days dissolved into a blur of screens and paper. At 2 in the morning, I sat at my kitchen island. The overhead lights were off. The only glow came from my laptop screen. My bare feet rested against the cold metal rung of the bar stool. The quiet clicking of my keyboard filled the empty apartment. I opened 3 different tabs for the major credit bureaus. I typed in my police report number. I attached the notarized identity theft affidavit Mitchell had prepared for me. I filed formal disputes for 4 different credit card accounts. My phone rang the next morning. Sandra Okafor. Aegis Life flagged the beneficiary change as fraudulent, Sandra said. Her voice carried a crisp, professional edge over the speaker. The policy has reverted to the estate of Kayla Brennan, but there is something else you should know. We pulled the login data. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. What data? Your mother logged into your human resources portal 7 times in the last 6 months, Sandra explained. She changed the beneficiary. Then she changed your password to lock you out. Then she changed it back to your original password so you would never notice. She did this over and over to check the status. I closed my eyes. 7 times. She logged in 7 times. That was not a mistake. That was not a moment of weakness. That was a project. She built a back door into my life and checked the locks every month. I opened my social media app. I finally replied to the message Ethan sent me 2 weeks before I ended up in the hospital. What exactly did my dad say about my insurance? I typed. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Ethan was typing back. He was on the phone with your mom, the message read. He said something like, if something happens, the payout covers everything. I thought he was talking about his own insurance at first, but then he said your name. It was weird. I took a screenshot of the conversation. I saved it to a secure cloud folder. Mitchell called me later that afternoon. The credit bureaus need original documents to verify your identity for the disputes, he said. Birth certificate, original social security card. I rubbed my forehead. I left a cardboard box of old tax returns and my original cards at my mother's house when I was 22. I told her it was just old papers. I told her to keep it safe for me. We need to formally request those documents back, Mitchell told me. If she refuses, we issue a subpoena. I spent the next 3 days waiting. I cooked small meals. I stared at the walls of my apartment. Sometimes I would walk past the mirror and catch my own reflection and wonder how a person could look so normal when their entire history was actively being dismantled. On day 8, I went back to the office. Mitchell told me I could take more time, but I could not sit in the apartment any longer. The quiet was starting to press against my skull. I needed the routine. I needed the filing cabinets and the case numbers and the mechanical rhythm of work that had nothing to do with me. I sat at my desk and pulled up a custody brief I had been working on before the hospital. The words on the screen looked foreign. I read the same paragraph 4 times. My phone buzzed in my desk drawer. Another unknown number. I turned the device face down and shoved the drawer shut. At lunch, I sat alone in the break room. The microwave hummed. A legal assistant named Claire asked me if I was feeling better after my hospital stay. I said yes. She said I looked thin. I told her I was fine. She squeezed my arm and walked out. I was not fine. I was running credit bureau dispute forms through my head while pretending to proofread discovery motions. I was calculating the math of my own mother's betrayal between conference calls. 4 credit cards. $27,400. 7 portal logins. 1 canceled prescription. I kept adding the numbers like a closing argument I could not stop rehearsing. The hardest part was not the fraud. The hardest part was going home every night and realizing that not a single person in my family had called to ask if I was okay after leaving the hospital. They called to tell me to apologize. They called to tell me I owed my mother gratitude. Nobody called to ask how I was breathing. Day 12 arrived with a sudden, sharp ring of my phone. I was standing at the stove. I was making instant noodles for lunch. The steam rose from the pot, clouding the glass lid. Afternoon sunlight poured through the kitchen window, casting long, pale yellow shadows across the floor. Raleigh always felt so quiet in the winter. I picked up the device from the granite counter. The vibration against the stone sounded loud and harsh, entirely different from the muffled buzz against wood. It was Mitchell. Aegis Life completed their investigation, Mitchell said. His voice sounded different. The careful, measured tone he usually kept was gone. He sounded almost excited. They referred the beneficiary fraud case to the Wake County District Attorney. This is not just civil anymore, Kayla. There is potential criminal prosecution. I turned the burner off under the pot. Criminal? Like my mother could go to jail? Insurance fraud in North Carolina is a Class H felony, Mitchell explained. 4 to 25 months. But that is the district attorney's call, not ours. More importantly for you, Aegis confirmed your medical claim is fully covered under the group policy. The $187,000 bill, your insurance covers it. The review hold is officially lifted. My knees unlocked. All the air rushed out of my lungs in a single, jagged breath. I hit the edge of a dining chair and slid down until I was sitting. $187,000. Gone. Just gone. I looked at the pot of cooling noodles on the stove. The kitchen blurred. I started to cry. I had not cried in the hospital. I had not cried in Mitchell's office. I cried now, sitting alone in the yellow afternoon light. I wept because for the first time in 3 weeks, I felt solid ground beneath my feet. I was not going to lose my apartment. I was not going to carry a mountain of debt for the rest of my life. 2 of the credit card accounts had already been flagged as fraudulent by the bureaus. The collections calls had stopped pending the investigation. I was winning. I should have stopped there. I should have closed my laptop and gone to sleep and let Mitchell handle the next steps. But winning made me stupid. Winning made me want something I had no business wanting. I picked up my phone. I opened my contacts. I tapped my mother's name. I did not tell Mitchell I was doing this. I did not want legal advice. I wanted a mother. I wanted to hear her voice break. I wanted to hear her say she was sorry. I wanted her to tell me she loved me more than the money, and that she had just made a terrible mistake because she was desperate. Before the first ring sounded, I remembered Mitchell's voice in my head. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. My thumb moved across the screen. I hit the record icon. I did not do it as a calculated legal maneuver. I did it purely out of a paralegal instinct. A tiny, automatic reflex. My mother answered on the 3rd ring. I was wondering when you would call, she said. Her voice was flat, cold. Mom, the insurance company investigated, I said. My voice wavered, betraying me. They found everything. The beneficiary change. I know about the credit cards too. A heavy silence pressed through the speaker. I waited. I waited for the apology. I waited for the tears. Everything I did for this family, my mother said. She was not crying. She was not afraid. She was furious. You think a dental receptionist's salary pays for anything? You think your father's child support covered a fraction of what we needed? I kept a roof over your head for 15 years. Alone. With my credit, I whispered. It is family credit, she snapped back. Her voice rose, sharp and defensive. There is no yours and mine when you are family. You owe me your life. Literally. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I stared at the screen, recording the duration of the call. I tapped the red button. The call ended. My hands shook so hard I had to place the phone flat on the kitchen table. The silence in my apartment rushed back in, deafening and thick. I thought making that call would bring me catharsis. I thought I would get closure. I was completely wrong. It was a trap. I had just tipped my hand. My mother now knew that I knew everything. She knew the insurance company was involved. And my mother, the woman who had quietly drained my identity for a decade, was not the kind of person to sit back and wait for the consequences to arrive. The first call came exactly 1 hour later. My aunt, then my uncle, then my older cousin. I did not answer any of them. I stood in my kitchen and watched the names flash across the glass screen. My mother had gone back to work after our phone call. She was sitting at her dental receptionist desk and she was making calls between patients. She was mobilizing the entire family. By 5 that evening, my phone rang again. A local Wilmington area code appeared. Nana. My grandmother was 78 years old. She was my last living grandparent. I pressed the green button. I thought she would listen to me. I thought she would be neutral ground. "Sweetheart," my grandmother said. Her voice sounded thin and papery over the speaker. "Your mama says you have been under so much stress with that hospital bill. She says you are making some terrible accusations. You know she would never hurt you. Why do you not come down to Wilmington for a few days and clear your head?" My knuckles turned white against the edge of the granite counter. I had driven to Wilmington every Thanksgiving since I was 14. I sat at her kitchen table and peeled sweet potatoes while she told me stories about growing up on the coast. She was the one person in this family I thought saw me clearly. Nana. She took out $27,000 in credit cards in my name. She changed my life insurance policy. The insurance company investigated and confirmed it. "Now, Kayla," she interrupted. Her tone was gentle but firm, the same voice she used when I was 8 and told her the dog ate my homework. "People get confused when they are sick. Your mama had a hard life. She sacrificed everything to raise you after your daddy left." I opened my mouth. I closed it. There was no point. She had already decided the shape of the story before she dialed my number. I ended the call. The narrative was already set in stone. I was the stressed and paranoid daughter having a mental breakdown. My mother was the martyred single woman who kept her daughter alive through sheer force of will. It did not matter that she kept me alive with my own money. 10 minutes later, a Durham area code lit up the screen. "My father," I answered and pressed the record icon immediately. "You want to destroy this family?" my father barked. He did not say hello. The heavy sound of highway traffic echoed behind his loud voice. He was driving. He was always driving somewhere. Always in between places. Never arriving. "Your mother told me what you are trying to pull. You think you can drag us into court over some old electric bills? You opened utility accounts at my old address," I said. My voice stayed completely level. The record icon pulsed red in the corner of my screen. "You let them go to collections. They went on my credit report, not yours. That is how family works," he said. His voice dropped low, a dangerous gravel tone I remembered from childhood. The tone he used right before he slammed a door. "Your name was on the lease. I needed power turned on for the unit next door for a job I was running. It was easier to use your information. Nobody got hurt. $4,200, I said. "That is what they sent to collections." "We are family," he growled. "You help out your family, but you want to play lawyer? Fine. I know the maintenance supervisor at your apartment complex, Kayla. I did electrical work on that building last summer. It would not be hard to make your living situation very uncomfortable." The line went dead. He did not say goodbye. He never did. The implied threat hung heavy in the quiet air of my kitchen. He was careful. He always kept his words right at the edge. Close enough to frighten, but far enough from the line that no detective would call it criminal. I saved the recording and sent it to Mitchell. Then I double-checked the deadbolt on my front door. Night fell over Raleigh. I sat on the hardwood floor of my living room. I did not turn on the overhead lights. I did not switch on the lamps. The only illumination came from the street lamp outside the building. It cast long, pale stripes through the window blinds. The shadows stretched across the floorboards and crawled up the opposite wall. My bare feet felt like ice against the wood. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. It was the only sound in the entire apartment. My phone lay face down next to my knee. It vibrated, a harsh insect like buzz against the solid oak. 11 missed calls today. Every single voicemail told me I was overreacting. They told me I needed therapy. They told me I had to forgive my mother because she raised me alone. I reached down and flipped the device over. The harsh blue light made me squint. A new text message sat on the lock screen. It was from my grandmother. Your mother has her faults, but she sacrificed everything for you. Please do not put her in jail over money. You will regret it when you are older. I read the text twice. Something deep inside my chest fractured. It did not break because my grandmother was wrong. It broke because I realized she knew. Everyone in my family knew. Maybe they did not know the exact dollar amounts or the life insurance policy details, but they knew my mother had financial problems, and they knew she used me to solve them. They watched it happen for years, and they still chose her. I was the useful one. I was the responsible daughter. I kept the peace and I never said no. I set the phone down and pulled my laptop from the coffee table. I opened the lid. The bright screen illuminated the dark room. I needed to know everything. I opened my personal email and typed the word pharmacy into the search bar. I scrolled past years of promotional emails and digital receipts. I looked for my allergy medication records. I found an automated message from 8 months ago. It was a notification from the pharmacy network. My mother had managed my medical accounts until I was 26. When I got my own employer insurance, I thought I took over everything. But the automated refill system for my allergy medication was still linked to her old master profile. I clicked the email. I read the text. The pharmacy had requested authorization to refill my prescription. The request was denied. The account administrator had manually declined the refill and canceled the automatic renewal. My hands went completely still on the keyboard. I stopped breathing. The cursor blinked on the screen. The refrigerator kicked on in the kitchen. The apartment settled around me with small wooden groans. My mother did not just change my life insurance beneficiary. She let my allergy medication expire. She knew I was severely allergic to tree nuts. She knew my throat would close in minutes without that pen. She knew because she was the one who rushed me to the emergency room when I was 9 years old and accidentally ate a brownie with walnuts at a birthday party. She held my hand in the ambulance. She told me she would never let anything happen to me. 8 months ago, she logged into the pharmacy portal and clicked a single button to cancel the medication that kept me alive. 3 months later, she logged into my human resources portal and changed my life insurance policy to pay out to her. I placed both hands flat on the floor. The hardwood felt like ice. I pressed my palms down harder until the grain of the wood cut into my skin. I needed to feel something solid. I needed proof that the ground was still there beneath me. If the waiter at the restaurant had not called the paramedics in time, I would be dead, and my mother would be $250,000 richer. She would have worn black to my funeral. She would have cried in front of everyone. And 2 weeks later, she would have deposited a check with my name on it. I sat in the dark for a very long time. I did not cry. The tears from this afternoon belonged to a completely different person. A profound, cold stillness settled over my shoulders. Something shifted behind my eyes. The grief pulled back like a tide and left behind something hard and clear and sharp. I stopped feeling. I started seeing. When I was 16, I gave my mother my portal passwords so she would stop worrying. When I was 22, I left a box of my most important identity documents in her attic to keep the peace. When I was 25, I bought my own car, but let my father put his name on the title to save on insurance rates. Every single time I trusted my family, I was handing them a piece of myself. I was giving them access. I thought love meant having no locks between us. I had spent my entire life waiting for them to love me the way I loved them. Sitting on the cold floor, I finally understood the truth. They did love me. They loved me the exact same way a person loves a bank account. They loved me like a resource, and that was exactly as much love as I would ever receive from them. The girl who wanted an apology died on the floor of that apartment. The useful daughter was gone. She was replaced by someone else, someone who understood exactly what needed to be done. I picked up my phone. I did not call my mother. I called Mitchell. He answered on the first ring. "Mitchell," I said. My voice was completely steady. "I need to file a formal criminal complaint, not just the police report. I want the district attorney to know I am cooperating fully." "Are you sure?" Mitchell asked softly over the line. "Yes, I am going to file the civil suit too. And Mitchell, I want those tax returns from that cardboard box. Send her the formal legal demand tomorrow morning. If she does not give them back, we subpoena her." I walked into Morrison and Greer the following morning. I did not wear oversized hospital clothes this time. I wore my own tailored black pants and a white blouse I had ironed at 5 in the morning because I could not sleep. My hair was pulled back tight. I carried a thick manila envelope and set it flat on Mitchell's desk. I was not there to ask for help navigating my feelings. I was there with a strategy. "I have the evidence package for the district attorney," I told him. Credit card statements, the insurance investigator report, the time-stamped messages from Ethan, the pharmacy refill denial records, and the audio recording of my mother admitting she used my credit. Mitchell looked at the folder. He looked up at me. Something in his expression shifted. He had watched me walk into this office in hospital, lost and found clothes 10 days ago. Now I was standing in front of him with organized exhibits and numbered tabs. "You are sure about this?" "A criminal complaint against both parents. The civil suit. This does not get undone, Kayla." "The question is not whether I am sure," I replied. I kept my voice perfectly even. "The question is whether I am going to let them do this to someone else. My mother has 2 nieces under 18. My father has Ethan. If I let this go, they will just find another resource." Mitchell nodded once. He reached for the envelope. He sent the formal, legal demand for my cardboard box of documents that same afternoon. My mother received the letter the next day. I know this because my aunt called me 40 minutes after the postal delivery window and told me I was tearing the family apart. I did not answer. 2 days later, a package arrived at the Morrison and Greer front desk. My mother had driven to Raleigh and dropped it off herself without coming inside. The receptionist told me the woman looked furious. Inside the box, I found my birth certificate, some old tax documents, a few high school yearbook photos, and a broken pair of earrings I had forgotten existed. My original Social Security card was missing. I expected that. She had needed it to open the credit cards, and she had destroyed the evidence. But she left the tax returns inside. She thought old tax forms were harmless paperwork. She did not realize that Mitchell would find her name listed as a filer using my Social Security number for deductions during years when I was already fully independent. We filed the fraud report with the Internal Revenue Service that same week. 3 days later, I sat in a settlement conference room at the Wake County Courthouse. I arrived 40 minutes early. I sat in my car in the parking garage and stared at the concrete wall in front of me. My hands gripped the steering wheel of the rental car I had been driving since the hospital. I thought about what I was about to do. I was about to sit across a table from the 2 people who brought me into this world and present evidence that they had systematically stolen from me. There was no version of this that felt good. There was only the version where I did it and the version where I did not. I got out of the car. The district attorney's office had arranged the meeting, pulling both the criminal and civil threads into one room because the defendants were the same. The fluorescent lights buzzed, a low, constant hum near the ceiling panels. My hands rested flat on the polished oak table. They did not shake. The sharp scent of gardenia perfume drifted across the table. My mother sat opposite me with a young attorney she found through the county legal aid referral service. She could not afford a private lawyer. The irony was not lost on me. She had spent my money for years but could not scrape together enough to defend herself from the consequences. My father sat a few chairs down. He refused to pay for an attorney. He thought he could talk his way out of it. Mitchell opened his briefcase. He presented the evidence methodically. He did not raise his voice. He was entirely factual. He laid down Exhibit A. 4 credit card statements in my name, mailed to my mother's townhouse. Exhibit B. The insurance report showing 7 unauthorized portal logins. Exhibit C. The audio transcript of my mother saying it was family credit. Exhibit D. The message from Ethan with timestamps showing my father discussed the insurance payout weeks before I was hospitalized. Exhibit E. Pharmacy network records showing my mother's account had manually declined the automated refill of my allergy medication 8 months before my anaphylactic episode. My client maintains that she believed she had implicit authorization, her lawyer started. He sounded tired. He had clearly read the evidence package before this meeting and understood exactly how bad the situation was. Implicit authorization to change a life insurance beneficiary? Mitchell countered smoothly. To open credit accounts? To cancel an allergy medication refill? He paused. He tapped Exhibit E with one finger. Your client managed the pharmacy portal for Miss Brennan's prescription auto refill program. 8 months before the anaphylactic episode, the account administrator, your client, manually declined the prescription renewal and canceled the automatic system entirely. Your client knew her daughter carried a severe tree nut allergy. 3 months after canceling the medication, she changed the life insurance beneficiary to herself. The room temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. My mother's lawyer turned slowly and looked at his own client. His expression changed. He was no longer just tired. He was disturbed. My mother broke. She leaned forward over the wood table, her knuckles pressed white against the surface. Kayla, I am your mother. Everything I did was for us. I looked directly into her eyes. I did not flinch. You let my allergy medication expire, Mom. 8 months. You knew I was allergic. You knew I could die. And you changed the beneficiary 3 months after that. The room went dead silent. Her lawyer slowly put his pen down on his legal pad. Mitchell was not finished. He pulled 3 more pieces of paper from his folder. The final trap snapped shut. You attempted to cover your tracks by deleting the portal emails, Mitchell said to my mother. He slid a printed email across the table. But you could not delete the automated confirmation sent from the Human Resources server to my client's work email on October 14th. The timestamp and Internet Protocol address match your home network. My mother stared at the paper. She stopped breathing. Mitchell turned to the next document. Furthermore, when you returned the box of my client's belongings, you left her old tax returns. These returns show you claimed income deductions using her information during years she was entirely financially independent. We have filed the appropriate fraud forms with the Internal Revenue Service. Then Mitchell looked at my father. He pushed the final page forward. And Mr. Brennan, your son Ethan overheard you discussing Kayla's insurance payout during a phone call with Diane Brennan. That conversation took place 2 weeks before Kayla was hospitalized. Ethan sent her a warning message on social media. The message is time-stamped. It establishes that you had knowledge of the beneficiary change and discussed potential proceeds before any medical event occurred. My father turned completely white. He had no idea Ethan had heard him. He had no idea Ethan had warned me. My father started to snarl, his face twisting with rage in front of the district attorney's representative. He stopped himself, but his own mouth had just betrayed him. The opposing lawyer requested an immediate recess. I sat quietly in the room while they stepped out into the hallway. Through the heavy oak door, I could hear them turn on each other. My mother hissed that my father was supposed to keep his son quiet. My father yelled that she promised the emails were untraceable. 2 divorced parents who had conspired to rob their daughter were now divorcing themselves from the conspiracy. 10 minutes later, they walked back in. The settlement was swift. My mother's lawyer recommended she accept all terms to avoid a trial. She agreed to full restitution of the $27,400. She agreed to a formal identity theft remediation plan and a strict no-contact order. In exchange, she received a deferred prosecution recommendation. My father signed the paperwork, accepting liability for the $4,200 in utility fraud. They had no other choice. I left the courthouse feeling a strange, heavy clarity. There was no joy. There was just the quiet realization that it was finally over. I met Ethan at a coffee shop down the street that afternoon. The bell above the door chimed as he walked in. He looked terrified. He wore a wrinkled flannel shirt and his hair stuck up at the back like he had not slept. He ordered a black coffee and sat across from me. His knee bounced under the small table. He picked at the paper sleeve around his cup, tearing it into tiny strips. "I should have told you right away," Ethan mumbled, staring into his cup. His voice cracked on the word right. He is my dad, you know. I kept thinking maybe I heard wrong. Maybe he was talking about something else. I told myself that for 2 weeks. "You did tell me," I said. I wrapped both hands around my own cup. "That message probably saved my case, Ethan. Without the timestamp, we could not prove your father knew about the insurance before I was hospitalized." He looked up. His eyes were red at the edges. His young face looked so much like mine had 7 years ago, desperate to keep the only decent family connection he had, terrified that doing the right thing had cost him everything. "Does this mean, are we still okay?" he asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I know we barely know each other, but you are my sister. Half-sister, whatever the word is." I reached across the table and put my hand on his wrist. "Just for a second. We are okay. But Ethan, I need you to do something for me tonight. Change every password you have, every account, and pull your credit report. Check every line." All the color drained from his face. He set his coffee down slowly. The thought had never crossed his mind. He was 22 years old, and he had just watched his father sign a settlement for committing fraud against his own daughter. It was dawning on him that the same hands could reach into his life too. "I will do it tonight," he said quietly. "Good." I stood up. I left $3 on the table for his coffee. He did not protest. He just sat there, staring at the torn paper sleeve, beginning to understand something about the family he was born into. 3 months passed. I stood in the center of my new apartment. It was in the same city, but on a much higher floor. Huge windows looked out over the green trees lining Wade Avenue. Afternoon sunlight poured across the bare hardwood floors. I dragged a heavy cardboard box across the room. The sharp sound of packing tape ripping echoed in the empty, spacious living area. My mother had received her deferred prosecution. If she paid the restitution and stayed out of trouble for 2 years, she would avoid a felony record. It was the reality of the legal system for a first-time non-violent offender. I accepted it. I did not accept it because I forgave her. I accepted it because I needed to move on. My father paid his misdemeanor fines. The utility accounts were cleared from my name. All 4 credit cards vanished from my credit report. My score was climbing back up. My grandmother never reached out again. I sent her a letter explaining everything. She never replied. It hurt, but I finally understood that I could not control who believed me. I could only control what I accepted. Mitchell remained my boss. We had a new layer of profound professional respect between us. Ethan texted me every Sunday. It was a small relationship, very cautious, but it was entirely real. The hospital bill was completely covered by my employer insurance. I opened a new health savings account at a different bank. Only one person had the password. I walked into the kitchen. My laptop sat on the bare island counter. Next to it sat a brand new allergy medication pen. The expiration date was printed clearly in bold black ink on the side of the box. 3 months ago, I was lying in a hospital bed. I was drowning in debt with no car and a family that left me there. Now I stood in an apartment I paid for, with credit I was repairing, and a name that belonged strictly to me. I used to think trust meant giving people access to everything. I thought handing over the passwords and the accounts and the documents meant I loved them. I thought love meant having no locked doors between us. Now I know the truth. Love is not about access. Love is about not needing it. My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. An unknown number flashed across the screen. I did not pick it up. I let it go straight to voicemail. I walked back to the cardboard box and pulled open the top flaps. I reached inside and pulled out a small framed photograph. It was a picture of me when I was 14 years old. It was taken the day my parents finalized their divorce. I was standing between them, holding both of their hands, smiling for the camera to prove we were all still okay. I looked at their faces, then I looked at mine. I did not hang the picture on the wall. I opened the bottom drawer of my new desk and placed it face down inside. I did not throw it away, but I did not need to see it every day either. Some things you keep, not because they are good, because they are yours. The voicemail notification blinked on my phone screen. I ignored it. I walked over to the large windows and pushed the glass open. The cold, clean Raleigh air washed over my face. It smelled like pine trees and rain. I took a deep breath. It belonged to me.